trophyhousetreasures.com or go online to trophyhousetreasures.com.
Made and played in the USA. Real Country 550 and 92.9 WAME.
Welcome to Racing Roots with Hamm.
If you don't know our host, David Hamm, he's a 25-year NASCAR veteran, engine builder, and Jackman.
Live every Monday evening, we have a new guest
From the racing world with their stories, their paths,
their racing roots.
Now here's our host, David Hamm.
And good evening, everyone. Welcome to Racing Roots with Hamm right here on 550 AM, 92.9 FM, right in the heart of Statesville, North Carolina. And we've got live in the studio, Randy Marion studio tonight. I've got my wife, my lovely wife, Tracy, over here.
Everybody.
Yeah, there you go. And we got Christian and Bryson in with us as well. How are y'all doing this evening?
Doing fantastic.
Good to see you as always every Monday. And but our guest this evening is Mr. Jeff Hammond.
The one and only.
Yep, one and only. So you are a longtime crew chief. You've been in racing since 1970-ish, thereabouts.
Yeah, thereabout.
Mm-hmm. And so we're going to get into a lot of this stuff that you've been through, a lot of the experience and throughout the years. I know that I was a big fan of your race teams that you worked on throughout the years, back in the 80s mostly.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. My dad always had my dad was a huge racing fan. So he was there in 1964 whenever Fireball Roberts got in his accident. And I know you were at that race as well in Charlotte.
Yep. I was sitting on the back straightaway with my dad and uncle and some friends right there off the exit of, I'd say probably almost middle way the back straightaway. Mm-hmm. So my uncle, Uncle Brad Tadlock, he actually had 8mm footage of the crash coming off of turn 2 and the subsequent fire and all the results of the thing, along with like a follow-up of when we got to walk through the garage, what was left of Fireball's car as well as Ned Jarrett's car.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So my dad said, and I don't know if you remember being able to do this or not, but he said he was able to take off running down towards it, but not on to it, but close to it, to the fence, he said.
Yeah, I mean, things are so much different. I mean, to try to describe the infield at Charlotte back then, I mean, turn 4 and that area was nothing but a big old hole where they had dug out the dirt necessary to build the speedway. It didn't have it all filled in and pretty like it is today. So it's kind of hard to describe. It's almost like they don't look the same. I mean, it totally does not look the same with what it did in 1964. And but yes, you could get a lot closer. I mean, like I said, after the race, it was garage area was totally open, be able to walk through. Fans could get through there real easy. That was one of the biggest differences of NASCAR in the early years. Once the race was done, there were like a lot of the short tracks here in the Carolinas, gates open for the fans to go down and talk to the drivers and the crews and look at the cars up close. So, big changes throughout the entire history of NASCAR as far as where you can go, where you can't go.
Yeah, that almost sounds like it was like the drag races are now, where you can go.
Very much so.
In and out of the pits pretty well. And so you're also a 3-time champion. Is that right? As a crew chief?
As a crew chief, I'm actually a 2-time champion. Okay. But as a crew member, I'm a 6-time champion.
Okay. I knew there was something in there, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I worked for Junior Johnson through all of Cale Yarborough's, 3 straight. And then when Darrell showed up in 81, was, part of the team and crew for that one. And then the other 2, the one in 82 as well as 85, I was crew chief. Mm-hmm. Now, in 82, we shared the crew chief role between myself, Doug Richard, and Mike Hill. Mm-hmm. So that's
why I always see that picture of y'all. And I thought that was like a really cool picture with y'all with Junior. And we're at Darrell. That's what it was. You 3 with Darrell.
Yeah.
And but I've had Doug Richard on the show, and I've had Mike Hill on the show.
Right. Too. All of them, just they're great guys, and really, 82 was. I'd have to probably say it was probably the most fun year I ever had racing. I've had some other good years, but I mean, it was just we worked so hard because we had people who left at the end of 81. Tim Brewer, Harold Elliott, and Eddie Thrapp for another one. I think it was it. There were 3 guys who left, and they went to work for Cale Yarborough and MC Anderson's. And which was okay. That's, you got to do what business is. They gave him good money to come down there, and they went. And subsequently, we put together that group, and I had kind of like the seniority out of them. We brought Doug in and brought Mike in, and working with Junior, and we were just determined not to let those guys ruin what we had the year before. And we got lucky enough that we were able to back up what we did in '81 with Darrell, and won 12 races and another championship. So we won 24 races in 2 years there. Yeah, '81 and '82.
That's amazing there. Yeah.
Oh, it was, like I say, that's when you have fun. When you win it like that, that's having fun.
Oh yeah, no doubt. That's hopefully I know we'll hear some good Junior Johnson stories. I always like to hear those. I got to meet him one time, and I got his autograph from my dad. He wrote on there to Carl Junior Johnson, because my dad was always a big fan of his, and that white number 3.
Oh yes,
Holly Farms.
The '63 Chevrolet. Yeah, oh yeah. The Mystery Machine.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
He. It's one of those kind of situations where you talk about you get lucky in the right place at the right time. I always felt like my entire career was always the right place at the right time. And even when it started when I was 12 years old, and my uncle did come get me out of bed one Saturday morning, it's like, man, leave me alone. Yeah. He called, come on, you need to go with me. We're going down to South Carolina, and we're going to go buy a race car. I said, do what? He said, yeah, I got a guy going to sell me a dirt car, and we're going to start racing. Yeah. So we loaded up in his, at that time he was hauling mobile homes for a company called Morgan Drive Away, and never will forget it. And we hooked it up to the trailer we used to haul the backhoe on from my dad's construction company, and down the road we went. He went down and picked up a 1956 Ford 6-cylinder, and the thing was painted school bus yellow with number 54 on it. And I always laugh about the fact that if you remember back in I know you, I'm going to use this very loosely and tongue in cheek, but you punks down there wouldn't know what car 54 is. It used to be a TV show with Officer.
Where are you?
Yeah, where are you, car 54?
Yeah.
Muldoon and was it Murphy? I think it was something like that. But it was the guy, Fred Gwynn, who played Herman Munster. Yeah, it was so funny. But I never will forget that. We got that car back, and we were trying to get it ready for the upcoming week, and didn't have a chance to change anything. We just got it, went over it and hauled mail down to, at that time we were running Starlight Speedway down in Monroe.
Oh, wow.
And he went down there, and it was the first race he ran. I think he finished 10th or something like that, and did a little bit of damage to the car, but not bad. And next week we come back, we took that color and added white to it and broke it up, and with blue pinstripes and everything, and he put number 92 on it. And that was the first year and my first full effort racing Starlight Speedway in Monroe, and then going down to Lancaster, South Carolina, and racing down there.
Okay. So, was Carolina or Gaffney around then?
Yeah, but we ran in a division at that time that nobody else had at their speedways. Starlight and Lancaster had a point deal going, so we focused our racing going there. And there was a couple others out of the where I grew up in Charlotte and Dorada area, Malley Creek, that we all kind of like, okay, we kind of like call it that Dorada or Malley Creek posse, and we all kind of went to the racetrack together. We put our cars close to each other, and kind of we all kept each other's back, kind of like say, it's always nice to have safety in numbers. Oh, yeah, so you didn't want to show up somewhere and not have a few people going with you, and that's what we did, and that's where we got started. But eventually we wound up running, Metrolina and Concord after that. So it's the evolution and the progression of building cars and building our own cars and learning how to build engines like yourself. My dad taught me how to build engines. He used to work. He was in the Air Force, and he built and did all the mechanic work on helicopters back then.
Okay. Where was he stationed?
Well, that's how he got, down here in this area. He was actually down on the coast, at like, I'm trying to think right now what the name of the Air Force Base used to be, down at Fort Bragg. Okay. And that's where he came. Seymour Johnson, but I think it was a different name back then. I could be wrong, but that's where and how he wound up in this in the Charlotte area, and met my mom, and that's kind of like the rest of it's part of my life story. I
remember
grew up in Charlotte.
I remember that because my family. So I got a text from Phil Cavalli, which caught me by surprise.
Yeah. Good to hear from Phil.
My family grew. They had the Air Force base there was named after well, it wasn't named after. They put it on the land that belonged to my family back in the day.
Okay.
My family was from the eastern part of North Carolina, but we lived in Charlotte. We grew up in Charlotte. Tracy and I on the west side over there.
Yeah, the west side is the best side.
No. I grew up on the north side. It was the best side.
Oh, yes, you're correct about that.
You are actually correct
So,
about that.
so let me ask you this quick question. You were talking about, you got woken up to go get a car. How old were you back then?
12.
12. Okay.
Yep. Started out racing when I was 12 years old. It was, like I say, it was something to do in the summer months. Mm-hmm. Back then, I played a lot of baseball and was getting into football, and that was the things that I did at that period. And I only got to work on race cars. I only got to go play sports if I kept my grades up.
That's right.
I had to do the homework first before I could go over and work on the car. Or once we decided to build our own, my dad saw how much we liked it, my brother and I. My brother's 3 years younger than I am, but he liked it also. And we made a decision to build our own cars. So we enclosed the family carport into a garage, and then that became Race Central
The
from
Hammond
that point
shop.
on. Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Yep.
How about that? That was your shop. Please give, this is what Phil Cavalli says, please have Hammond give a happy birthday shout out to Susan Mader. She's my friend and loves Hammond. Yeah, Mader, Susan Mader.
Well, Susan, happy birthday. And again, I really appreciate Phil letting me know about that. I love Phil. Phil's a great photographer, just a great guy all the way around. And he's also right now I would say, and if I'm not right, Phil, make sure you send us a text back and correct me, but you're the chief photographer for the Smart Tour and modifieds that are being raced around the Carolinas and Virginia right now. And
I believe that's correct.
yeah, I mean, I got a lot of good friends there, Bobby Labonte and Burt Myers, or should I say Bart? Oh, yeah. I give him a hard time, but no, it's really it's a great series, and my friend Chris Williams took it upon himself to kind of like rebuild and get that series up and to where it is today. And I mean, I think he's done an outstanding job, and all the racers and the sponsors that have stepped up to give the Smart Tour, the Southern Modified Tour, kind of like a rebirth in its own right. And I think it's I don't know. I think it's destined to grow even bigger and bigger, and they're probably going to have some of the biggest fields here in the Carolinas this year for some races they got coming up. Mm-hmm. Just had a race at South Boston the other night.
I'm happy to see how the grassroots racing is coming back. Mm-hmm. The modifieds.
Well, I think it's because we finally stopped ignoring where the real feeder system comes from for up and coming drivers. Yep. We were pushing, and I'm not knocking iRacing by any stretch of imagination. Okay, do not think right. This is what I'm saying, but we were, I think, creating a lot of misconceptions about what it takes to really become a good race car driver. I mean, the guys that I know that I feel like are really good, they all had to come up through the ranks of dirt racing or legend cars. And, you got to get your hands dirty, and you need to learn how to do it that way if you really want to feel like you can claim that you can think you can get to the Cup Series.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I mean, it's a hard ladder to climb.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And it seems like here recently, within the past, I don't know how many years, it seems like the talent. All right, so let's say NASCAR drivers have gotten in because a lot of times because of money. Let's just say money. Yeah, I mean they've almost bought their way in a lot of ways. So
Well, I hate to say that, but I mean let's just look at what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, even back in the day, I knew Banjo Matthews, and Banjo had a place up in Arden, North Carolina, built for a large period of time. He built, I'd say 90% of the race cars that were racing at that time, the Busch Series or Grand National Series, as well as now the Cup Series. Mm-hmm. So his deal said Banjo's Performance Center, where money buys speed. So, I mean, he coined the phrase, and that's just the way it has progressed, I think, since that period, that if you want to go fast, all you got to do is have a lot of money. I mean,
Yeah.
hey, but you ought to know that. You work for Roush Yates. I mean, those engines aren't cheap.
Oh no, they're not. They're not cheap
I
at
mean,
all.
even when somebody says, "Oh, we can do this," right? It won't cost you just a little bit of money. I mean, it's really very reliable and everything. Folks, let me tell you something. You might have to take out yourself another second mortgage on your house if you want to get a good engine.
Very
Oh, I
true.
know.
Very true. I was floored.
Yeah, one of the FR9s costs more than a lot of people's houses.
Yeah.
Well, but that's technology for you.
True.
And unfortunately, back in the days, we used to go in the junkyard and get a 6-cylinder 223 or a 6-cylinder 240. And then when I stepped up to the late models, it still go, get either a 327 or get a 350 block and have at it, and figure out how much money you want to spend. You want to run cast iron heads, you want to run aluminum heads. And it's just. There again, it's how much money you want to spend, but it was just so funny back then. You'd blow an engine on Friday night at from Metroline or wherever. Well, you go to the darn junkyard on Saturday morning and take one out of a Econoline van or something like that, bring it back to the house, change the camshaft on it, and put a set of special intake and a set of headers on it, stick it there and go run Lancaster that night on Saturday night.
Oh yeah, done it many times. You can find you a 4-bolt block. You're always like, yeah, that's better.
And the junkyard started learning it and made you pay for it too.
Yeah, that's right. It did. Okay, so we do actually have a call. Hopefully this is going to work out okay as far as the sound. I may have to pot our mics down just to make sure that it sounds okay. But hey, who we've got on the line with us?
Oh, it's Stoney Ballard.
Stoney Ballard? Hey, Stoney.
Hey, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing really good. I'm really, really good. I need to bring y'all up to speed on who I'm talking to here. Stoney Ballard is son of Walter and Katie Ballard, and that's one of the teams that I work with for several years in my progression throughout my career. And, we had kind of like the kiddie corps, over there at Walter's house, but Clint and all of them, working on the car, and Clint had a pretty good career in racing himself. But Walter, gave me one of my first, kind of like big shops for having a regular weekend job, going to the racetrack and working on his car, during the week. So I really appreciate that. And Stoney, you doing okay?
Yeah, doing okay. Who am I talking to?
You're talking to Hammond.
I was just kidding you, man.
Well, sometimes I remember how you used to forget things, so I just want to make sure you didn't forget who I was.
That's all right.
No, I just had to call in because I got another teams meeting. I'm a high school teacher, automotive. Go figure.
Well, your dad was a good teacher.
Dude, I just wanted to say, when you and Rodney and your dad came out there to lay that slab out there on Victoria Avenue.
Right.
And because me, Clinton, Danny, and Joey, and Robbie, we didn't have no license at the time. So we had to illegally, drive everything to get rid of the waste. And, we did what we wanted back then. And you were the first guy that we had that had a license.
Yeah, you took advantage of me too. I like to remind you of that.
Yeah, but brother, you know what? I just wanted to personally say that, you took so much. We were still in high school, middle school, and high school, and you took so much pressure off of us because when you seen that race car, I seen you look at it, and you wanted to be on the team. Mom and Dad talked about it, and it's like you were our savior so we can get through high school and stuff like that. You took so much pressure off of us, Jeff. And then to see you watch you grow and get up with, Darrell and everything like that, it's like our family owes you a lot more than what you ever expected.
Well, you're very kind, and I don't feel that way. I think it was a situation, I said it earlier, at right place at the right time. We all worked together. We all were able to learn from each other, and the circumstances, worked really well for me because you didn't live that far from my house over there, off of 115, and so it really was just a blessing that your dad was willing to give me a shot, and he taught me a lot, and I got a chance to hang out, working on his cars. Like I say, your mom would run up to Junior Johnson and them buy parts and come back, and your dad would build the engines, and Herb Nab would come down and work on gears, and Darrell and Stevie would show up. I mean, they were really good friends with Walter and Katie, so friendships and relationships went a long way back then, and I was like I say, the right place at the right time, and even though you kids sometimes I need to take a ball bat to you, but it turned out to be a lot of fun.
That's why you were older. No, and I appreciate everything you did for us and the family, and Jeff, I have to appreciate you and commend you for because you were like our big brother at that time. You got hired into our family when Dad hired you, and we watched you and we appreciated you, and we seen which direction that you were going, because how Dad was. He's a drill sergeant.
He was. He definitely don't do it wrong, and you better be yes, sir, and thank you, sir. Can I get another, sir?
Yeah, but you were our reprieve to say, hey, we can actually communicate to this guy, and then we're watching your success and everything like that. So it helped all of our success bring back in. It's like you were a vacuum to us. So we wanted to go the direction that you were going at the time. And, I just wanted to tell you I love you and I miss you. And, brother, when you spoke at Mom's funeral procession, that really broke my heart. And I still remember that daily, that what you said, that she was your second mom. And, brother, I just wanted to say I love you and I'm proud of you with all my heart. And just say, Jeff, I love you, brother.
Well, thank you, Stoney. And again, the feeling's mutual. I mean, your family is very special to me. Your mother was, we miss her so much today. And your dad, I gave him a call on his birthday just last month, and it was good to talk to him and kind of catch up. But you and Lisa and Clint. We are family, and I love you also, and I can only wish you well. And like I say, the times we had together, nobody can take that stuff away from us.
No, they can, and you know what? We still have pictures to prove it.
That's it.
I'm not going to show some of them, but I'll still show some of them.
I hear you.
All right,
good talking to you,
brother. I apologize. I have to get off of here and get back onto a Teams meeting, but I love you, brother, and that's an awesome podcast. I'll be listening to it in the background. I love you, brother.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stoney.
Thank you, Stoney.
Thank you, buddy.
Thank you, Trace. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, good old Stoney Ballard there.
Yep.
He's a great one. He's teaching a high school down in Florida now.
Okay.
He's teaching automotive down there. So I always say that his Stoney's kids. That's exactly right. Yeah. So he said he had told me he was going to be busy this evening, but he was on call in. So.
Well, great. I appreciate that. I really do. It's like I say, it brings back good memories.
Sure. Yeah. So the movie Six Pack, I'm sure you've probably seen that
a time or two.
Yeah, it's just like, all right, have you picked out which one was probably you in that movie? Yeah.
No, I don't think and if I had, I wouldn't tell you.
Yeah,
I'm not going to give you something to give me a target about. I'm going to make you guess which one it is.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Only those that know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when Stoney came up here, he was on the show, and then we had Clint here too.
Right.
And Danny and Lisa were supposed to be here, but they were sick. And but Joey Knuckles came in too. So.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Knuckster.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He had the most impressive whip I've ever seen on a front tire changer.
Yeah. He was sitting there with the gun.
Oh, yeah.
Around it before he even.
He'd run out of a bottle of air halfway through the race.
Yeah. And whip that hose around.
That's it. That's it. Hey, do you guys ever say anything over there? Are you just window dressing? I'm just checking.
We do.
Okay.
Only when they're spoken to.
Well, I just
didn't
didn't want
mean
them.
to
I didn't want them to feel like they were left out over. I feel like they're over there, and I just wanted to make sure that we got two other people over here that are part of this panel here, and I'm beginning to wonder. I'm gonna put my finger on them. Are you moving?
No. Well, there's so much good conversation happening. Sometimes you just got to sit back and listen a little bit.
Okay.
Take it all in.
So you believe and subscribe to the idea of the fact that God gave you two ears and one mouth for a reason?
Yes, I've heard that many a time, and I think it's true. Yeah.
Definitely.
It's basically like whenever I ask them a question or whenever I direct them to say something or whatever, then they can talk, And it's a lot of times it's comments on Facebook or comments on YouTube or something like that.
And the two of them are wanting to get into broadcasting at some level. Yeah. So that's good.
Well, get all you can, but at the same time, don't forget, you go to school and get the
real education.
Complete it.
Yeah.
Because everybody wants to be a broadcaster, I think, sometimes, because everybody thinks that's a pretty cool thing to do. But, I didn't get the opportunity to go to broadcast school, but I would definitely suggest if that's what you want to go, make sure you get all you can to get your resume filled and a total understanding about what's going on.
Yes, sir. And I actually graduated college 2 years ago from the Canal School of Broadcasting. I went there for a couple years, and now I'm a camera operator, freelance videographer, photographer. Also work at Dirt Vision. Bryson, he works at Hickory.
Yep. Well, actually, this year I just started. I worked for Hickory last year. Actually, pumped some gas and just did some hands-on stuff like that. But I've been able to move into the booth this year, so that's I've learned a lot through that. So I'm trying to get some experience.
So, are you doing the PA or helping do the PA up there?
Yeah. Well, it's actually we do the PA and we do live on Flow Racing. So it's really good because I'm getting the PA aspect of it with announcing things like concessions and stuff like that. But we're also we have a production team with Flow Racing, so we get that kind of aspect of it too. So really, we're 4 weeks into the season. I've learned a lot about the broadcasting side of things. So it's a lot of fun.
Good
At
deal.
the young age of 17.
Yeah.
Let me think.
I know.
I think that was a couple of centuries ago.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Doesn't it feel like even with me, it's like another lifetime ago? Like let's say the 25 years I spent in NASCAR the first time. Then I retired for 3 years. Took care of my dad, and worked in my shop, and then now I'm back in the racing again. So, but it seems like a whole lifetime ago, 1995. And
yeah. Well, like I say,
So much has changed.
yes.
Yeah, like I said, I'm sitting here. You made me think about like 1964, and now I'm in the the 70s. With the going along there, with the Ballards and everything. So it's like, yeah. It's amazing. Where did all the time go? And that's the thing. It's crazy.
And that's a good point. It's like and I tell all the young people to always remember. Cherish every moment, pretty much. Because you just got to remember all the good times
and take it all in.
Yeah, learn as much as you can.
Yeah, well, the thing is, easier said than done.
Yeah,
because if you and I had done what we were told, we'd be a lot further along than where we are, right?
Oh, that's true. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, and that's the other thing I tell people is like money. I'm like invest or put it in the growth stock mutual funds and that
Silver,
type of thing.
gold.
As much as you can. Don't go blowing it on stuff that you don't need.
True.
And,
when you make it, you got to spend it.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully you wake up and do what you just got through saying. That is very true. It's like you're 17.
17.
Yep.
You think that 65 is a long time? Well, guess what? It may be a whole lot longer because they keep moving that number out.
Oh, the retirement age.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And that's what everybody uses it for a gauge. Mm-hmm. But you need to be in a position. Your desire and how you should manage your money is that have enough money put away so you can retire when you're 50. Don't wait on the government to tell you that.
Right.
Have enough money put away and make sure you do what you said earlier about investments and the right kind of businesses and get everything paid for. Don't put it all on credit card and overspend and get to the point to where all of a sudden you're living paycheck to paycheck or skipping paychecks from time to time to make ends meet. But I know this is not a financial show, but just to share with you, that's the goal you need to reset where you need to be now and think about it. And you'll be a whole lot happier.
That's actually good. See, I'm taking a business and personal finance class as we speak. So I have that for my third period at school. So we which is really good. We're like talking about budgets and stuff now. And so it's really, I mean, you know, I've learned a lot just, you know, from all it's the stuff like that. I think that hasn't always been taught in school necessarily that I think is really beneficial. So,
well, let me give you another little life lesson when people talk about me working for Junior Johnson. Mm-hmm. When I went to work for Junior Johnson at the end of '76, I was getting paid $800 a month.
That's good for back then.
For back then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is.
But the thing was, Junior also knew how to manage money. And back then, you know, they paid you dividends on money you left in the bank. You know, you could get a lot of interest. Interest was really good back then, you know. So Junior would leave everybody's salary money in the bank for a month. Mm-hmm. He'd give you one paycheck. And now what did that do for Junior? That made him have the ability to earn interest off of your money for 1 month. Wow. On top of that, when you had your per diem, you would file for your per diem after you got back from the race. And that would take a month to get it through that process. Mm. So, you know, you learned how to manage money. I mean, I paid car payments, I paid for my apartment, and whatever I did, I had to come out of that $800. Mm-hmm. So I learned how to manage money because of Junior Johnson. Mm-hmm. And I learned how he did business. Like the end of the year when we were, you know, winning races and going through everything at the end of the year, he would do reassessment about how much money he had won and how much money he didn't want to pay the, you know, government. So he would go out and buy equipment. A lot of times we'd buy stuff that we were going to run the next year and get it on the parts shelf before the end of the season so that he could write it off on the taxes. Mm. I mean, he was pretty sharp businessman. He really was.
That was genius.
That's very smart.
Was your per diem like $10?
No, as a matter of fact, it was $12.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
$12.
Mm-hmm. And so somehow he ended up coming out to the better two with the months, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
I mean, I see what Offset did instead of the bookkeeping. Mm-hmm. You know, you're only writing 12 checks a year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the other thing was my bonus would be a month's salary.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But let me remind you, there's 12 months in a year. But how many weeks are there in a year?
52.
When you divide that by 12, he paid me for 48. Yeah. He kept the other month and gave it to me in a Christmas bonus. Uh-huh. Now, tell me how smart the man was.
He's a pretty smart guy.
He did. He made. I felt like, man, I got a month's salary. He just got me caught up on what he owed me for the year.
Yeah, that's great.
So, I don't know. I got so much love and respect for Junior and the way he did business. He may have been an old mountain man, but he was a smart old mountain man.
Yeah, well, let's just say racing's not cheap, so you do have to count your pennies when you can.
And he was good at doing that, and he passed that on through everybody who ever worked for him. I mean, I think it was so amazing. All the years I worked for going almost 12 years, and we never had a contract. Everything was done on a handshake, and I never asked him for a raise because he always gave me a raise.
Nice.
So, I can't tell anybody who will listen how good this man was to me. I felt like, and at the same time, the things that I learned from him along the way. Yeah. You know, if I wanted a garden at the house when I didn't own a tractor, he said, "Yeah, you can take that tractor. You take my truck, and you take my trailer, and go down there and plow your garden. Whatever you need to do, just bring it back the way you found it." Yeah. You know, whatever he had, I was able to use, and it was just really good guy.
Yeah, I was laughing about. I was thinking about the story about your old bar in his car with Earnhardt and going to lunch. But we'll talk about that when we come back because we're going to take a quick break. But I also want to tell the quick story about Stoney Ballard in his Junior Johnson story. He said that he was flying his airplane, I think at Talladega, and Junior brought him over some special fuel to put in it and said, "Here, Stoney, try this fuel." So he puts the special fuel in, and he said his airplane just goes and it goes and it goes and it's gone. It's like out of the track, it's gone. He said,
"But don't tell nobody where you got it from."
He said, "Don't tell your parents where you got that special fuel and what happened. Don't tell them what happened." So it was like 2 races later, Junior brought him a plane that was like a 6-foot wingspan, a P-51 Mustang, and he gave him some special fuel to run in that thing, and it ran really good. But he made up for it, so that was cool.
Yeah. Junior's a big old kid.
Yes. That's awesome. All right, so we're talking to Jeff Hammond, and we'll be right back to Racing Roots with Hamm. Y'all don't go anywhere.
Hey, Ryan Scott's at the Ford store in Statesville. What's going on here?
I tell you what, Billy Buck, I am so excited. I want to start with the price first. I never do that. How about $29,990? $29,990. Folks, that is a 21 model Toyota 4Runner. I've got a special purchase of SR5s and TRD off-road packages, yes, starting at $29,990. Come see him today. Randy Marion Ford Lincoln. We're right here on I-77. You know where we are, exit 49B. Look for that spinning car, folks, because that is where the deals are. Remember that, $29,990. I'll start with it. I'll end with it. It is a deal today at the Ford store.
Accidents happen, and when they do, there's only one name you need to remember: Statesville Collision Center. Statesville Collision Center is proud to be a Gold Class collision repair business. The Gold Class recognition indicates that their technicians are trained in the proper repair techniques and procedures that contribute to the complete and safe repair of your vehicle.
Roots with Hamm, and we got Jeff Hammond in with us this evening, and we're talking about and hearing some great stories about the racing from back in the day, I guess you could say, because it's been a few years since you've been out of NASCAR, but you're not really out because you're doing, is it Fox you're working with now and Sirius XM?
I'm working with Sirius XM. I do front stretch with Pat Patterson, and also I work with PRN. Doing fast talk, and sometimes doing what they call pit reporters with Brett McMillan. As a matter of fact, we shot a version of fast talk this morning with Doug, myself.
That's animals.
Okay. Say, what is that? Yeah. But yeah, I do a lot of work, more in radio than anything. It's not so much television today. Mm-hmm. And I also work for a company called Apartrate and do webinars every other Wednesday for them.
Oh, okay. I started to open up the show and just say, all right, Jeff's going to take over the show this evening. Just go with it, because I know you got so much experience now doing this stuff.
I have an experience, but at the same time, wanting to flex muscle, I don't want to do that. I just want to sit here and talk.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yes.
I'll let you worry about running the knobs and, let her screen the calls, and we'll go right on down the road.
That's right.
So speaking of which, we did have a question come through. Mr. Dargan Watts wants to know, how did you get, let me find it again, how did you get Darrell Waltrip to shut up?
Well, it's pretty simple when it's on the radio. Just turn the radio off. No, I mean, Darrell has a gift for gab, and I think one of the reason why we got along and worked together so well for so long is that whatever he needed to do, that was my job. Mm-hmm. I mean, when you're a crew chief, you take on the responsibility of not only the guys that work on the car, but you're supposed to take care of dealing with NASCAR and sponsors. And the number one thing is making sure your driver's happy. And if it means you've got to be the punching bag or the whipping boy, whatever it is, that's the way it is. If he's having a bad day and he wants to fuss and cuss and carry on and blame somebody, that's what your job is.
Kind of like a wife.
Well, yeah. Now, you brought that up. I didn't. Just remember, I did not bring that up. So David, just make sure.
Surprised me.
Don't let her jump on me or anything like that. But we always had this philosophy between me and him was that whatever's said on Sunday is forgot on Monday. You didn't take anything personal.
That's good.
I mean, that's the way that you. I mean, I hate to say it, but it's some, this is just part of the byproduct, and I think we've all listened to enough race car drivers, especially because of, what TV like Fox, in-car communication, and NBC, with all the talk back and crisscrossing between spotters and drivers and crew chiefs. I mean, we hear some pretty salty language.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
So if you don't have the ability to do that, there would be a lot of race car drivers and/or crew chiefs, because some race car drivers, pretty tough. Mm-hmm. But there would be a lot of guys running around with fat lips and black eyes because we'd be fighting in the garage area after a race. Yeah. So you can't take it personal. I mean, your job is to absorb it, deal with it, and then move on.
Yeah. I agree. Totally agree.
You can't get caught up in the moment.
Especially a lot of the older characters, let's say back in the '60s and the '70s, and all the people that you worked around, they were really characters that built a lot of character into you too. I'm sure. And I went through some of that, with the people that had been. Let's just say they've been in racing for a long time, and then here I was a new guy, or here you were a new guy coming in, and they just built character into us.
Well, you learn
thick skin.
Yeah, you got to learn how to do that. I mean, unfortunately, organizations that I've worked for, and in the course of my career, I mean, I've been into a few Donniebrooks, or a part of teams that have been in Donniebrooks. I mean, everybody remembers Donnie and Bobby and Cale in '79 at Daytona. I was on that team. And then you go up to '89 whenever we got into it with Rusty's team down at Charlotte after the All-Star event there. You have those moments. You have those moments where your emotions get the best of you.
Yeah.
But no, there's not anybody that I've ever run into or had any kind of issues with that I hold grudges with. And I don't. I'm sorry that I got upset. And I think they are too. But that was the heat of the moment. And here again, we all, I guess you might say, we all learn how to control our emotions and become a lot more, I guess you might say, like thick-skinned and patient. And just don't overreact to it. It's not personal. It's business.
Well, too, and you got to think about it. It's a business. It's your job. It's the heat of the moment.
Yeah, every bit of it.
Every time you're under pressure and heat of the moment, you say things that you regret.
Absolutely.
Now, you brought up the All-Star race. You all actually won the first All-Star race in '85. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
You got to start with the fact that whenever Winston made the announcement and said that we're going to put up $200,000 to win this race, well, going back to Junior Johnson, Junior said, "Okay, guys, we're going to build us a special race car." And that's what we did. We went and went and talked to Banjo and started talking to people at Chevrolet, working with their aero engineers, and we literally built a car that was, I would call it futuristic for the time. It had, back then we didn't have side skirts, and back then we didn't let the race cars go down and get close to the racetrack as far as the frame was concerned. And we figured out the way the rules were that what we would do we'd add to the bottom of the frame to lower that, and then make the right side of the car, the door, longer from the top of the door down to the bottom of the door. And we were able to accomplish that, which made it like it had side skirts, so it helped to put more downforce on the right side, as well as the quarter panel. We did the same thing there. Did a lot of testing in the wind tunnel to be able to substantiate it. Did a little bit of underbody work, but we spent a lot of time at Charlotte testing. And right there at the end, I mean, that day, I see you got a Skull Bandit hat on. Yep. Harry Gant was out front. At that time, Travis Carter was his crew chief. It used to be with Junior at one time. And he pitted Harry at the beginning of when they opened what they call the pit window. You had to pit within this 10-lap part of the race back then. Well, he pitted on the first lap that was available. And because of that, just like today, he had fresh tires, and we were on old tires, and he was able to stretch out his lead. Mm-hmm. We pitted on the last lap of that period. We weren't that familiar how this whole game was played, but once we came back out and realized how we were right at a straightaway or more behind Harry with just very few laps to go, and I never will forget, Junior. So, we got to pick pace up, and I had been given lap times. I said, okay, Darrell, we got to pick pace up. And he was trying, but when Junior got his attention, it's when he called and said, Darrell, you want to win 200,000, you want to win 90. I want to win 200,000. And that was Darrell. He got up on the wheel and he called Harry going into turn one and just, sailed that number 11 on the outside of the 33 going into one and brought it home.
Wow.
So it was pretty exciting finish. And, what I think also made that weekend, and I don't know if you know this story, but the deal was we won the race, and Junior went to Dick Beatty and said, hey, Dick, and we had already qualified for the 600. We qualified fourth in another car.
Gotcha.
And it wasn't as fixed up as much as this one was.
Okay.
So we went to Dick Beatty and said, hey, can we withdraw the primary car, put the engine out of that car into this car, and then start at the back of the field? Yeah. Dick said, yeah, it's all right with me.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, they said it was okay. So we went to working on it, and we'd blown the engine at the end of the race, so we had to clean all the oil system up and everything. So we went through a pretty long process on Saturday afternoon, working into Saturday night trying to get things done, and come in real early Sunday morning, and we were swapping engines, and we'd already had the engine swapped. And Dick Beatty came over and said, hey, Junior, Jeff, come here, man. Daytona just called me and said that you can't do that. I was wrong, and they said, no, you can't withdraw a car and resubmit another car. That's not in the rule book right now, so you're going to have to run that car. Okay. So it's like Junior went ballistic. Dick, you lied to me. And he felt like he'd been lied to.
Yeah.
Poor Dick Beatty had been overruled by, Mr. France. So it was like, okay, Junior said, well, let's load the cars up. We're not going to run the race. And Darrell like, whoa, Junior, you got to calm down here. You got to calm down. We got to run this race.
Yeah.
So we start putting the car back together, and no joke, we got the car cranked, went through inspection. We're rolling it out on the line, and the other drivers were already in the cars.
Wow.
Wow. That's cutting it close.
Yeah,
because you got to remember, that was a 12:30 start of the race back then. We didn't have late evening deal like they do now.
Well, now they wait till 4 o'clock.
Yeah. I'd like to have another 4 hours.
Yeah.
But that's what we did. We wound up putting it back together, and like I say, Darrell jumped in there, and we were pretty well wore out, but we went 600 miles, and we run probably one of the best 600-mile races that we ever had at that racetrack. And by the end of the day, we'd won 2 races in 2 days, all-star event, a 600-miler, and on Monday morning, we're sitting there at the start-finish line with those 2 race cars for Good Morning America.
That's awesome.
Us down here in Charlotte, and that was the same year that Danny Sullivan did the spin to win at Indy. So they were sitting at the start-finish line in Indy, and they were doing a simul deal at that time.
Wow.
I never will forget that.
That's awesome.
That is cool. So bringing up that with the All-Star race, you talked about the way you guys made the car and worked on that to make it different for the race. That made me think, we hear a lot of stories of guys talking about times they made modifications to a car and they were really fast, but the NASCAR made a rule following that race or based on the cars. Is there a situation you can think of a car that you worked on that maybe NASCAR saw something that made you guys fast and created a rule post-race for that?
The one we built for the All-Star race.
Okay, so that very one. All right.
It was one of those deals where, they said, you can't do that. Well, it doesn't say in the rule book you can't, and which was right. And the door template at that time was a door template, and nobody had a measurement that said this had to be a stock dimension. So we made the door longer, but it still met the template that they put on there. And, even though it had a little tilt to it to get the flat side, it still fit the template. So where they put templates and the way they put templates. And we always like to, talk about the fact that, we weren't rule breakers. We were rule makers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We'd come up with something, and the rule, if you take a look at, I got rule books from back then, and, they were about the thickness of this cell phone. Mm-hmm. But today, you go on a computer and you'll be looking for 9 hours trying to, get through all the rules and regulations and stipulations and what's going to happen to you if you do it wrong.
Right.
So it's been an evolution. We've everything throughout the history of the sport has necessitated constraints. And that's what it's really all about. I hate to hear people when they say, "Oh, you're cheating." No, it's not cheating. It's self-defense, and at the same time, you look for where the holes are in the rules. Mm-hmm.
I've got a book. It's about this size, and it says NASCAR rule book, and it has nothing on the pages.
Make it up as you go.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Exactly.
It's ever changing.
Yeah, ever changing.
Yeah, well, there used to be, we always used to laugh about the last page of the rule book had an ER/IR rule. And we said, what does that mean? Except in rare instances, everything in this book is accurate.
Oh, yeah.
The circumstance comes up, we'll alter the rule based off of what we need for it to fit.
Yeah.
Or TBD, to be determined.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So that's part of it.
Y'all team won the championship in '85, and you won 43 races in the Cup Series as a crew chief. Was there one that stuck out the most? Any win? Maybe the '89 500?
Well, '89 was special, but that weekend at Charlotte in '85 was special. The 7th race at Bristol was special. I think when I first rejoined Darrell after I left Junior Johnson's in '88. I think that's right. Sometime my years I can't remember. But what had happened, we were up there at Martinsville, and Darrell hadn't won a race all year. And I had rejoined him at Riverside, which was about the middle of the year.
Gotcha.
And we're at racing Martinsville. We had a good car, but Terry Labonte and Earnhardt had a better car that day. We were running third. And went off there, getting ready to come to the white flag. And Darrell went in there and run in the back of Earnhardt, knocked him up into Labonte. They both went going up the racetrack. Darrell turned left, went underneath him, and we got a win there at Martinsville.
Yep.
And, it kept his win streak alive, and it kind of got the team turned around, and, things just got better and better, as far as that was concerned. But it was a big day for Rick Hendrick and Darrell and the Tide Ride.
Definitely.
There was a lot of times where Earnhardt caused wrecks, of course, and but we'll talk about some of that whenever we come back from. We're going to take another quick break. This will be our last break of the evening, so
Station identification.
Yeah, that'll be that too. And we got Jeff Hammond on Racing Roots with Hamm with us, so y'all don't go anywhere.
Hey, this is Pastor Kenny Wallace, the pastor at Providence Church of the Living God. We would like to invite you and your family to come out and be God's guests. Bring your family and help God's house grow. We are a Bible-believing church. We believe in the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. We are of the Pentecost faith. If you like a small country church, then this church could be for you. Everyone is welcome in God's house. The church is located at 112 Benfield Road, Statesville, North Carolina. The church cell phone number is
all 19 locations. Great benefits at a great company. Go online to theflowersautoparts.com. Click on careers to find out more.
Real Country, WAME.
And we're back to Racing Roots with Hamm, and Jeff Hammond is in with us, and we're just talking about the grandkids and Jeff's son and all the stuff, the good stuff.
Yeah. Real proud of the grandkids and the boys and the girl. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Heather. Yep, good deal. Mm-hmm. Good deal.
Yep. So we were talking about Earnhardt and some of the wrecks that he had caused through the years. You know, he used to have
you
reputation.
did. I don't. Make sure you get that. I didn't bring it up.
Yes. Before the break.
Yeah.
I mentioned how Earnhardt would typically cause a lot of wrecks. You know, putting the bumper on the people or blocking.
Rubbing his racing,
maybe, that
honey.
Kind of stuff. Oh, I know. I'm with you. Well, she got Earnhardt blood in her. Whatever. So that's why she drives the way she does.
Hey, I have not had a wreck.
Yeah. What? She keeps saying that, and I tell her,
I know.
You better knock on wood, girl. I'm telling you.
I think
what.
after 50 years of driving, I'm all right.
Okay.
It's the other people you got to worry about more than yourself,
Very
really,
true.
when you're out there. But anyway.
Especially around Charlotte, it's drivers.
I'm getting ready to say, she may not have wrecked, but how many people did she cause wreck?
Oh, that's
that
true.
That may be the other part of it, you know.
You're right. Absolutely right. All right. So, but I was going to ask you about Junior. Well, actually, let's go back to the time that you went to lunch with Earnhardt,
mm-hmm.
and tell us about that in Junior's car.
We were at Bristol. It rained, and back then we didn't have dryers, so it was dragging tires around the racetrack. So it come lunchtime, and Earnhardt and his guys wanted to go out and eat. Well, they didn't have a car there. Ours was outside, and he said, "Hey, come on, Jeff, you can go with us, and you can get your hands on a car, right?" And I said, "Yeah, I can get Junior's car." I asked Junior, can we do that? So Doug Richard, myself, Lou LaRosa, and I can't remember another boy was sitting in the back. Well, we were going to go to his Chinese place, which is back over off of Interstate 81, not that far from the racetrack, but it's back through the country. So Earnhardt knew how to get there, so he drove. Mm-hmm. Well, Earnhardt never drives slow. And even though it was raining, he was, I think, practicing his Metrolina power slide. Yeah. So we got a 4-door Impala, and he's doing the sliding around the road here. And Earnhardt, you better slow down. So I got it covered. So we go there, we eat, and he said, "You drive back." Okay. I take off. I said, "Drive back. Hurry up. Let's go." So he's coaching me and teaching me what I need to do coming up to this corner. Okay, do this, throw this way. Well, we come up to all but a left-hand 90-degree turn. And I get it sliding, and it's sliding. And the thing was, this corner on the right-hand side, there was a creek. So he says, "Get in the gas, get in the gas, get in the gas." I stand on it, and the back end starts coming back around to the left, and all of a sudden I realized, wait a minute, I overpowered to the left. And he's saying, "Go back, go back, go back, go back." And I went back the other way, and it kind of hooked, and next thing you know, I slam on brakes. Off in the creek we went.
Oh, no.
And we got this 4-door Impala. With a steel bumper. Thank goodness I had a steel bumper. It's sticking nose down into the creek. Literally, we're probably at a 45-degree angle in the creek.
Wow.
It was all we could do to get out of the car. And one of the guys got through from the back seat and hit his head on the dome light. He was bleeding. And he was up basically in the windshield. And Earnhardt is cussing and laughing at the same time. "Junior's going to kick your, what?" He thinks that's the funniest thing going. And this is no lie. We get out of the car. I'm looking. The rear tires are up off the ground. It's like, oh my gosh, this thing, I'm going to have to buy this car. And I'm just saying, there goes my year's salary.
Right.
And the corner that I just missed, coming down this road, we look, and here comes a police car. And can you believe it? We have just crashed this car, and here comes the police car. It's like something out of Smokey and the Bandit. Dun, dun, dun. Earnhardt says, "Don't say a word, I'll do the talking. Don't say a word, I'll do the talking." Well, he goes walking and meets a policeman, and he pulls off the side of the road, and Earnhardt's telling him, he said, "Look, man, big black dog jumped out in front of him, and he tried to miss it, and he lost control and crashed the car." And the police officer says, "Well, boys, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I can't pull you out of there. Earnhardt said, don't worry about it. My pickup truck's back at the track. He said, I'll go get a chain. I'll pull that thing up out of there. So he gets the police officer to run him back to the racetrack and get his truck. He took Doug and the rest of them, and they went back to the track. So here comes Earnhardt back with his pickup truck. Sure enough, he hooks onto the back of the car, four-wheel drive. Wasn't that bad. Pulled it up out of there. It only busted one of the headlights, busted the right headlight. Otherwise, it had some mud down in the grill and stuff, but it wasn't that bad. And we go driving back into the racetrack. And I know I got to go tell Junior. Yeah. So I parked the car, parked it where he couldn't see the front end. And I go over and say, Junior, I had a little problem. He said, I already heard about it. Earnhardt come by and told me what you did. What you could do something stupid like that, letting him talk you into driving that car that way. He just, it's like, and Junior don't get animated, but he knew. He said, I know Earnhardt talked you into doing something you weren't supposed to do. Yeah. And Earnhardt was over behind Bud Moore's truck at that time, I think it was, and he was laughing his tail off. He was laughing his tail off. He had me in trouble. And Junior said, you gonna fix it? Yep, you gonna pay to get it fixed? I said, yes, sir, I sure am. Whatever it costs, I'm gonna pay for it. And then he looked at me and grinned. Yeah. You know, he was having as much fun. I think Earnhardt just busted my, on that end of the deal. But that's just one of those moments that it happened, and I'll never forget it. And I wouldn't change anything about some of those events.
Yeah, that's a great story.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so I was talking about Earnhardt causing some accidents, causing some wrecks, whatever. What about the 1986 Richmond race when DW and Earnhardt got into a wreck?
Well, it was another one of those moments. You can ask Terry Labonte about these kind of moments. I just meant to rattle his cage a little bit. Yeah. Earnhardt told us, he said, I didn't think I was going to hit him. Well, how do you think you weren't going to hit him? You turned this as hard as you could to the left and caught him in the right rear quarter panel. Yeah. I mean, there was no ifs and the buts about it, but he did. To kind of set the story up, we're racing at Richmond. Earnhardt is blocking Darrell, and Junior's getting frustrated because he was up on top of a wrecker. First time he'd ever left the pits and got up high to watch a race. Old Richmond Fairgrounds, half-mile track, and all of a sudden he kept watching Earnhardt, chop Darrell. I mean, we had a better car, but he couldn't quite get position, and Junior called Darrell as he come off of turn 3. He said, Darrell, pass that car. I pass him now. And Junior obeyed. He got down there in turn 1 right there, and he dove underneath him and moved him up out of the groove. And when they turned coming up off of turn 2, that's about time we got going into 3. Earnhardt hooked him in the right rear quarter panel and turned him in the outside wall and tore all of us up. I mean, he wrecked like 3 or 4 cars in that one wreck. But it was just, as Earnhardt would say, it was just bad timing.
Yeah. Right.
Yep.
That's a hard hit too, and there's a lot of cars they piled into that.
Oh, it tore that car up. I mean, big time. And the guardrails are like can openers. I mean, they just really do a hard. You don't have a whole lot left when you get hooked in that, because it grabs parts of the suspension, rips everything loose, and that's what it did.
Did anybody ever get mouthy with Junior? Talking back drivers. Darrell got mouthy with him one time at North Wilkesboro. We had made a pit stop, and it wasn't a good pit stop. And the decisions that we made on the tires and like that is, Darrell was being opinionated. Yeah, and he was telling Junior, this, and that. And, Junior finally said enough right there. He said, Darrell, it's real simple. You want to drive my race car? Or do you want to run the pits? You make your mind up. And if you want to run the pits, you bring the car in here. I'll find somebody that wants to drive for me. So that pretty much, put the end to that.
Yeah. Fix that chain of command.
Well, I mean, Darrell is a very dominant type of personality. And it takes a stronger personality, to keep him under control. But when you keep him under control, what you get is a pretty good race car driver.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I mean, I had a boy that worked for me, and I'm trying to remember what Roger's last name was. It escapes me right now, but long story short, we were working on the car one day, and Darrell was running his mouth, and Roger looked at him and said, Work your hands, not your mouth. I never seen Darrell shut up so fast in my life. Yeah. Like, how can you talk to me like that? He did. I swear, maybe I laughed. I think everybody on the crew got a big laugh out. Just work your hands, not your mouth.
He earned brownie points with that one.
He did. I think we took him out to lunch the next day.
I always remember Jaws. That's what. I was a Darrell Waltrip fan, of course, but I always just remembered that. I guess Cale Yarborough called him that. Got that started, Jaws.
Oh yeah, I mean that was because of their crash they had at Darlington.
Now I was going to say real quick. Whenever I was growing up, like watching racing was Fox. Obviously, the 2000s, you were on Fox, as an analyst, and you worked with Darrell Waltrip on Fox, not only racing but also like production and broadcasting. But I was going to say, I remember one of the shows, the Speed Channel had the 10, and I remember that's the first time I saw the footage of that 86 Richmond wreck. And I remember, like, there's clips of people talking about it, including yourself, and also in 89. But the 89 All-Star race, could you tell us about that? Because Waltrip almost had that one, and Wallace turned around, and Wallace's image, he ended up becoming sort of a lot of fans turned against him at that time. But can you share with us about that?
Well, it was one of those situations where Darrell was not really a fan favorite at that time. Yeah. And, Rusty was kind of like, I think, middle of the road. But we had made a pit stop and, we're making a run to try to, win the race and had been really dominant up to that point. But the car stepped out on Darrell just a little bit, and Rusty drove it in there and hit us in the left rear quarter panel. Not hard, but he hit him hard enough that it dented the left rear quarter panel and spun us out. Darrell did a good job, didn't tear the race car up. So subsequently, the teams had issues with it, and one of my guys kicked Rusty's car when he was headed toward Victory Lane, and it was Todd Parrott and Sandy Jones, and they started the brawl, and the rest of us got into it, and Darrell was upset, and he was going to run his mouth, and I had to push him up in the trailer and tell him to cool his jets before we talked to Jerry Bunch on TV that day. And that's when he came out and told us, well, I hope he chokes on that $200,000. But subsequently, it put Darrell in a different light, and the fans appreciated him more. They did kind of turn on Rusty, didn't really like him because of that. So it was kind of like it was worth losing the race to kind of change the perception of Darrell's image. And oh, by the way, we brought that same car back the next week we waxed it up, but we didn't knock the dent out of it because Rusty was saying I didn't hit him. Yeah, well, there's the dent right there to prove it. And we went out and won the race that day.
Yeah, how about that?
Yep.
Gosh.
Well, I do have one comment and one question come through. So Chad Hyder, who's our friend out in Ohio, he says, met Hammond at MIS back in the Speed Channel days. Treated me like he knew me forever. I appreciated it. Always was a fan. Then learned he was an absolute badass. Thanks for hanging out with Jeff. And then T-Chaps88 says, Hammond, if Darrell stayed with Hendrick engines, do you think that would have made any difference in how 93, 94, and 95 went?
Yeah. I mean, this is one of those times where, Darrell was real adamant about wanting to start his own team. He was driving for Rick Hendrick, which I thought was just awesome. But he had an opportunity to pick up, at that time, Western Auto, Parts of America, however you want to, they're all one and the same. But he had an opportunity to, bring in his own sponsor and own his own team, and he jumped on it. And subsequently, decided I want to start building my own engines, and had to add on to the shop and hire more people. And the thing that Darrell, and I think a lot of people don't realize that, sometimes being a one-car operation, you don't have good buying power. You can't buy 20 cranks like Hendrick Motorsports can. Right. So those are some of the things I think that, caught him off guard, and then had some issues with the way they were trying to do the engines, couldn't get good cylinder heads at the time. So, yes, I think if he had stayed with Hendrick engines and paid the bill, I really believe he could have done a lot better, and the overall end result, and more than likely he would have been able to keep his team and continue into probably to today. I mean, I really do. I mean, it's a difficult thing to do, but it's always easy to go back and go hindsight's 20/20 and draw conclusions. But in this world, I think sometimes you just got to realize, don't worry about what happened then, just worry about what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
Move
That's a
on.
good point. Very good.
Exactly. Got to make a future.
So I was watching some on YouTube. I saw you were in a wrestling match with the Impact Wrestling back in 2005. That actually was pretty cool. I mean, what do you think about that?
It was a lot of fun. It started kind of innocently. Jeff Jarrett and his group, his dad, Jerry, went to Speed and wanted to buy time to put Impact Wrestling, and I got the opportunity to start broadcasting. That's where I got started in the wrestling deal, because I'd grown up, with the Crockett's down here in Charlotte, with
Wrestling and racing.
Wrestling and racing. I was a big wrestling fan, and when they asked me, would you like to be a broadcaster, and call some of these matches, I said, yeah. Well, I went to Nashville and did a match over there at the old Fairground Speedways. That's where they used to do their wrestling matches. So we went there and did a couple events, and then they moved everything to Orlando, there at Universal Studios. And I used to fly down there. I'm trying to think right now. I think it was a Wednesday night. I'd fly down there on Wednesday afternoon or Wednesday morning and go to the meetings, and then we'd tape that night. And it just, it kind of kept building. People were giving me a hard time because, you don't know nothing about wrestling, da-da-da-da-da. So we had a challenge match, and some guys, I wound up wrestling a guy named David Young, and I beat him, and it progressed from there. And I have still got a guitar. I wrestled Jeff Jarrett on 2 different occasions, and he hit me with a guitar one time.
Wow.
And so I still got the guitar to prove the fact that he did.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it. I think they're great people, Jeff Jarrett, and has always been in the business and the industry. But because of that relationship, I got to meet and hang out with Dusty Rhodes and Kevin Nash and Ric Flair. I mean, it's kind of like everything else in my life. I say it again, right place, right time.
Yeah.
Timing's everything. And I got exposed to that. Wouldn't change it for the world. A couple of years ago, well, I guess it's been like 2 years ago, I went up and watched a guy, wrestle. I think it was outside of Winston-Salem. And I got into a kind of like being a manager type scenario where he was getting his tail whooped, and I jumped up in the ring, and we got it on again. So it was fun.
That's awesome.
I love doing it. I'm not bashful saying that if they gave me the right scenario again, I'd probably do it again.
Yeah. So I grew up in Charlotte, and then wrestling and racing, like Tracy said. And I remember being at Subtle Swimming Pool, and Ivan or Nikita Koloff, one of them was in there floating around. And I remember being like, scared to death. But I played football against Dustin Rhodes.
Right.
I think he played over at Myers Park or somewhere, I believe he went to, or East Meck. It might have been East Meck.
Yeah.
And so, anyway.
And Ricky Steamboat lived in our neighborhood.
Yeah. And Roddy Piper had a house down in there in Pawtucket, I believe. So, yeah. I mean, we were around it growing up in Charlotte.
Yeah. There's a lot of people, like I say, I got to hang out with Roddy Piper and knew Ricky Steamboat. Like I say, great people. They'll remind me a lot like racers. It's a big, fraternity, and everybody, they're entertainers. They're entertainers.
The avatar of a wrestling fan could also be a race fan. Avatar.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they're straightforward type of scenarios, but they're real passionate athletes. They really are.
Yep.
And physical.
Oh, very physical. Yeah. I mean, I've been up and did some stuff with Kenny Wallace and got to work with the Big Show and Hardcore Bob Holly. Hardcore Bob Holly one time, he flipped me one time and I didn't land right. And you talk about something, it hurts.
I can imagine.
I mean, it's almost like getting bounced off this hardwood floor here when I hit the wrong way. It gave, but my back didn't. So it's a chosen the pain is your choice. You know what I'm saying? Because when you get in there, it's going to hurt no matter what. And if they throw you up against the ropes or whatever, if you don't know what you're doing and don't learn the right techniques, you're going to pay the price.
Yeah. Well, you got an athlete background because you played football at North Meck and then in East Carolina.
Yep.
But you had to quit doing that because of a knee.
Yeah, I tore a knee up down in East Carolina, and subsequently, I had issues with it when I was with juniors. I had it lock up one time on a pit stop, and which led to my first surgery, which led to my second surgery, which led to the final surgery.
Yeah, got all that stuff cleaned out of there.
I got a replacement knee now, so I mean I'm good to go.
Yeah.
But it's just the process of wanting to play hard.
Well, speaking of that, with Junior, you actually filled in or took over as a Jackman whenever you kind of learned from him, I guess, in a way.
No, I didn't kind of learn.
Well,
I mean, I was going to pick it up and do like everybody else did.
Yeah.
And he told me, he said, boy, if you're going to do this, you're going to do it my way or I'm going to get somebody else to do it.
Which was different than everybody else.
He used to swing that thing behind his back.
Yeah.
And, Junior was 275, and here I was $175. And so I had to learn some techniques and work on that. But, it was I had originally changed tires on the 11. And that's what I was hired to do. But between knee injuries and people coming on board, that was the position that needed to be filled. Junior decided he didn't want to jack anymore. And he said, he was like, when we get laps down and weren't in contention, he'd say, okay, you need to go jack the car. And that's what I did. And I learned how to do it. And I don't know, it's just who I was, and that's what I was asked to do, and I accepted the role of, kind of like being the lead quarterback because Jackman starts the pit stop and the Jackman ends the pit stop. So trying to make sure everything was right, not any loose lug nuts and things full of fuel. I mean, that's kind of like one of the responsibilities of being a Jackman is. So I enjoyed it.
That's why I played high school football, but I wanted to be a Jackman when I got in NASCAR. That was my goal was to. And so immediately when I got hired in over at Savco in '95, I went right to going to the track and started training to be Jackman, and then started out with Kyle Petty doing that. Yeah, and I had a lot of fun with that. What you got?
Charles Jackson says, ask Jeff about Alan Kulwicki, how he knew him, any good stories, etc.
I knew Alan, and now were we really good friends? No, because he was there to beat me, and I was there to beat him, and he had a little different personality than a lot of us. When he came from up north, Wisconsin area and Midwest. But one of the coolest things I remember about being around him, we were flying on Felix Sabates' jet, and if you people know that Alan was very close and very good friends with Felix Sabates, and Felix really had a lot of respect for him. And we were flying, and we got talking one time, and I think that's where we kind of like found a common ground in our passions as far as racing were concerned. But I'll never forget, we were down in Atlanta, and it was one of those times where we had a snowstorm come through. Well, they canceled everything. Well, I got my guy and said, look, we got to change and put the race engine in. And I don't want to come back down here next week or do this, that. I said, let's just go ahead and see if we can fight our way to the racetrack, and we'll go ahead and change engines. So we get there, and it was our team and the Kulwicki. It was only two organizations that were there. And we fixed this up, the tarps, and got the space heaters from not only our space heaters, but because nobody else was there, we borrowed other people's space heaters, and we warmed that area up. And so it was comfortable, and people up in the suites were bringing food down to us because the orders had already been brought out to take care of the people who were going to come to suites. Well, because everything was canceled, they were going to throw a lot of food away. They brought it down to us. Yeah. So we were having fun doing our jobs, cutting up, telling jokes, but at the same time, eating and just having a good time like a bunch of racers can do in a very different situation. We had more snow outside than they had up north.
Yeah.
That was a good opportunity to bond a little bit, I think.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you gain a lot of respect for people. Tony Gibson was working over there, and Paul Andrews. I mean, they're all good people, and, I think we all learned a little bit of something, about each other because, we're the only ones there. So, we just had a big time.
Yep. Now, was that the same shop that you were with the Dirt Devil car, the 40 car with Kenny Wallace, right? In that same shop. Okay. Kenny, I texted him the link to the show, and he said, thank you. So he's tuned in if you want to say hey to him.
Kenny Wallace, Kenny Walrus. Dude, you got work to do this weekend. Now, you and John Roberts, y'all don't mess this deal up. He's been up there doing a lot of stuff for Bristol, let everybody know about the, the trackside show that he's going to be doing there, or should I say the what do they call it? The Racing Revival.
I think that sounds right.
Something about revival, I think. So, but they'll do great. And Kenny, just be ready. I'm gonna be probably coming by, standing out in the crowd, hollering at you and JR.
That's cool.
So it'll be fun this weekend.
Kenny's been doing a lot of stuff on his YouTube channel too, so he's really amped that up, and it's doing really good.
And I love Instagram.
Yeah. No, you're good. I was just gonna say I love watching Kenny Wallace's stuff. I mean, he's always when Kenny Wallace is speaking, usually it's worth listening to him. He's always got something good to say.
He's a character.
So,
but you know what you do when you get on there watching him? You're waiting to see, is it a joke? Or is he being the professor? You know, and that's what I love about it. You don't know which one you're going to get. And the thing is, every time he does talk, what I love about it, he's speaking from the heart.
Yeah.
And can he take this the right way if you're listening? Sometimes he forgets to combine the heart with the brain, though. You know, when he combines the two, it's really good. But sometimes he just speaks from the heart and forgets to engage the brain. But that's what makes him original.
Depends on how much coffee he's had, too. You know?
I'm going to tell you right now, I can't believe he ain't got a coffee sponsorship.
Yeah. For sure, Black Rifle Coffee.
Oh yeah, I mean,
there you go.
whoever wants to do it, I'm sure he'd be glad to take their money.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. He's going to jump back into SRX Series race car.
I think at Peevely, is that where you're going?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think he's going to run one race. I was trying to remember now myself where it was at.
Yeah.
Well, speaking about media, I was wanting to ask you. You were with Fox Sports for a while, and one of the big things there, they had the Hollywood Hotel. But I was wanting to ask, like, what was some of the preparations that you did for the pre-race and for the broadcast? What was some of the things that you did to prepare for the broadcast?
Well, about like anything else, I mean, you have to look at where you're racing at. You look at statistics. We had great people who gave us a lot of the facts and figures and the trends and the tendencies of what to expect from the race. And then the rest of it was just by going around the garage area and talking to the crew chiefs and Goodyear people and trying to get a feel for what's going on. I mean, that's really, I think, the big thing that's important is having communication and connection with the garage area. Because, I mean, that's the heart and soul of what's going to happen that weekend. And a lot of times you can get a direction, an anticipation of how the race pace is going to go and who to look for and who not to understand while they're not doing well. So it's just really, it's all about your preparation and kind of doing your homework.
Gotcha.
I mean, it doesn't change as far as whether you're a crew chief or whether you're an analyst or broadcaster or whatever. The more information you got, the better off you're going to be.
Definitely.
Are you still doing stuff with Brad Gilly?
Well, I'm not so much with Brad and I work with the apartheid deal, but right now because I changed my role at Sirius, and like I said, I'm working with Pat now on the weekends, and so I'm not working with Brad like I was on the late shift.
Okay.
Now I do some replacement stuff. You know, I've done stuff with Chocolate. I still may wind up doing some stuff for Todd Gordon with the late shift, but it just depends. I'm like a rotating deal on certain shows, but I'm on a regular deal every Saturday and Sunday morning with Pat.
Okay. Yep. Brad came on the show. We had to do it on. I think it was on a Friday evening because he had his show on Mondays evening.
Yeah, he does Monday and Tuesday. Yeah.
And I was trying to remember the sports announcer. You were all right. So when I played high school football at Harding, he was with Channel 9 News, I believe it was. Not Harold Johnson or anything, but he's been on here a couple times too. I don't know if you listened to that. He was great. But the
Delano, was it?
No. It was.
You talking about Brett McMillan?
Yeah, Brett McMillan.
Yeah, I do. I work with him on the Pit Reporters.
Okay, because he used to be with Charlotte on TV.
Yeah, he was with. He was on. I think he was with Channel 9. I think.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, but he
used to go out to the football games and do that
right
type of stuff.
Yeah.
So I mean, everything that you do as far as the commentating and that kind of stuff, just like Bryson, he's had a couple of opportunities come up since he's been doing the racing routes, and he helps out with the sports recap show on Thursday nights.
Well, I mean, even this right here has been really my root, and since I've started and doing stuff with this, being here at the radio and being a part of your show has really been like the first thing that got my feet wet. But I think, you know, the experience and just making connections and, you know, getting to hear advice, having you on tonight has just been so great to just hear advice and take it all in from people that have already done it. And I just, you know, understand that you're in a place to, you know, always continue learning. And so that's something that I've been able to you know, pick up and take through, you know, I'm 4 races into my what little broadcasting career I might have so far, but I've learned so much in just a short time that I've done it. So I'm very grateful for everything that I've learned, for sure. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good. I mean, like I say, always leave yourself, be open-minded.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if you can always get somebody to share information, because, again, that's I don't know. I think that's, you know, it's critical as far as anything in life, is what you can learn from the people that have already done it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like David says, listen more than you talk.
Yeah.
Listen more than you talk. So speaking of that, Scott Trevison says, he's our good friend, please give us your best Kenny Wallace or Sterling Marlin story.
that you can tell, right?
Yeah. I don't know. When it comes to Kenny, we had some fun times, but there's a couple of things I might not need to be saying.
Yeah.
I tell you what's so cool about what Herman's all about. We used to race go-karts over behind his house back down in Charlotte, back when he lived there, just outside of Concord or Harrisburg. And you talk about some crazy, wild moments. Mm-hmm. I mean, you would think that we were running Eldora, you know, running those go-karts. And people were flying out of that racetrack sometimes. And, I mean, it was every man for himself in a situation like that. You know, we weren't trying to hurt nobody, but you know how a bunch of racers are, especially if they've got a few Budweisers in them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But we used to always have a good time. He always brought, I don't know, what you hear out of Kenny today is the same things that we heard about out of him back then. Mm. But I don't know, he was always just one of those kind of guys that he was a lot of fun, and he was always trying to, I don't know, he always wanted to, biggest thing, he always wanted to outdo his brothers. That was a big thing. I want to outrun Mike, I want to outrun Rusty. Mm-hmm. And outrunning Rusty was a pretty tall order.
Yeah, sure.
It was good.
Yeah. You have his big curly head of hair, Kenny. I think his place, it was over off of 152 or 153 or something down that way. I don't know. He had a go-kart track. Maybe it was, yeah.
Well, I think it was down there off of Odell School Road.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Right now off Odell School Road.
Yeah.
But
that's all right.
It was a lot of fun. And when it comes to Sterling Marlin, the thing is, so we were talking about Stoney Ballard, and when I was helping Walter back then, we go places like Nashville. Well, the independent teams didn't have enough people a lot of times to change tires and do things. Mm-hmm. And here again, this is where Sterling, or Cuckoo, Marlin, his dad, and Sterling was working on the crew at that time. And because we didn't have enough people, we used to put crews together and come up with the best crew we could. And the deal was we used to pit on a quarter mile, which was inside, you know, the big track. Mm-hmm. And you come in, going into turn one, you turn left and go around the quarter mile and come back off of turn 4 to get back on the racetrack. My point was, we used to pit Cuckoo's car, and the rule was, if we're pitting Cuckoo's car, if he's in front of Walter, he gets pitted first. And then once we get done with him, we get reloaded, and then Walter would come in the next time by, and we'd change tires or whatever, you know, get his pit stop done. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times, I wouldn't change tires back then because Sterling and his boys were a little bit faster than our guys. And I used to gas the car. And I never will forget one time, the redhead system they had on Sterling's car didn't work real good. I got gassed. I mean, I was miserable because we didn't have gas aprons or anything like that. Oh, it burnt me up.
Yeah.
So, but no, Sterling is another one of those guys that wild and woolly. The wildest thing I remember as far as not so much with Sterling, but with Cuckoo and a guy named Elwell Langley. Remember Elmo Langley?
Oh yeah, I remember Elmo. I remember being with him in Japan.
Okay, we were down at during Speed Weeks back, and I can't remember what year. It was in the mid '70s, and we're at the I think the Hawaiian Inn had a little bar right there. But long story short, some guys came in, got to mouthing at Cuckoo and Elmo, and they were there with their wives and everything. Well, a fight broke out.
Oh, imagine that with Cuckoo involved.
And I thought I was looking at John Wayne and Kirk Douglas because they were back to back, and they were laying people on the floor.
Oh my gosh!
I mean,
that's awesome.
You talk about a brawl.
Yeah.
And me and my buddy Eddie Jones, we're sitting over in the corner, and we're thinking, should we get involved in this thing? I don't think so. They might get our heads busted by Sterling and Cuckoo or somebody because they don't realize we're trying to help them. So it was something to behold to a certain degree. These old guys, I mean, tell you right now, they were rocking and socking.
Did you by chance know? I sent that to Sterling the link so he can hear that story. He's actually working on a book right now. So we're putting stories in his book. So I'm constantly sending him different stories. Did you know that his Cuckoo's brother that raced back in the late 60s?
No,
I
didn't know him.
Okay.
I did not know him.
I got to know some of Sterling's cousins whenever we had a reunion back in September. And one of them was Bull. And it's definitely Sterling's cousin. But, I mean, some of the stories that they told, it was just unbelievable stuff. And I sat there until 2 o'clock in the morning and listened to them and did video of the whole thing.
I retired.
Yeah, you did. Everybody was gone. Even Sterling went to bed. He probably went to bed, I think, about 1 or so. And then I stayed down with his cousins, and we just talked some more. I just kept the film rolling.
Are you talking about like Friday before Saturday that week? Because I was there too. I don't remember.
You were where?
Friday at the when you were talking about the September event in Mount Airy.
No.
This was a different one.
Yeah.
Was this Sterling's? This was Sterling's party deal that we did down in Mooresville, right?
Okay,
Yeah.
my fault.
Yes, we had a big reunion with everybody that worked with Sterling before, basically. And then Bryson came with me because I did like a live broadcast there too.
Yeah, that was cool. What David was talking about, being in that room with Sterling and all of his some of his relatives and just everybody, a couple people that had worked with, and we're just in a small little room and everybody's just talking and we're sitting there recording it, and I'm thinking, man, I'm so fortunate to be able to be sitting here right now and taking all this in. It was incredible to be able to sit there, yeah.
And hearing all the good stories.
Yeah, it was
the stuff that you don't hear on the radio.
Yeah. Some of it you probably couldn't tell on the radio either, but that's all right.
Yes.
It was a good time. So Doug's Arrowheads Outdoors says, Jeff, you need to wash your truck.
Wash my truck?
That's what he said. Tell Jeff he needs to wash his truck.
Okay.
Well,
I don't know if
it's a farm truck. I mean, I drive it every day, but up and down dirt roads and things around the field. So okay.
I'm sure somebody's just trying to yank a chain.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right. If they're paying attention, I guess they're paying attention.
I'm surprised more people don't tell me that because mine, I haven't washed it in how many years? Probably 5 years.
I don't think he's ever washed it since we've been together.
I washed one because it's got actually a decent coat of paint on it, but my other one's covered with ground.
In at least 10 years.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah, but it's his daily driver.
It's a work truck.
Right, it's a work truck. Yeah. I got a work car. I mean, the same way. I mean, I drive a little HHR back and forth to Charlotte because it's so cheap.
Yeah, I got you.
So I've got a question myself. So do you recall David's first NASCAR interview was with you?
I tell this story sometimes.
Really?
Yeah, I mentioned that because I went and interviewed with you. I believe it was in '94. Because I still got the letter because I didn't get the job. But anyway, it was.
He would remember you. I
wasn't going to bring
that.
this up, but it was with the 40 car. With Kenny Wallace, Dirt Devil, and so I went. You were looking for somebody to do electrical stuff, like do the wiring in the cars and that type of thing. And I was not fresh out of college. I had graduated in '92 from the Automotive Service Educational Program down at Central Piedmont in Charlotte. That's a lot to say at one time.
That is.
And so I went in and interviewed with you, and it was set up by the Wendells. Terry Wendell.
Yeah.
Probably so. And, so anyway.
Yeah, but you were his first introduction to NASCAR.
Yeah, my first job. I waited 2 hours. and then when I got in there, you said, "You sure are persistent." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, I want a job in racing." Michelle Fesperman was the lady out front. I ended up working with her at the other Sapco building.
Yeah.
Eventually. Yeah. But But then I
was
ended
that
up,
the one over there off? Is that Orr Road?
Yeah, it was off Orr Road.
Yep.
Yeah, I ended up going and working a machine shop over there with Doug Hess.
Okay.
So yeah, I got hired over there not too long after that. So yeah, I talked to Barry Dodson too, and he was over there not long after Trey and Tia, his daughter and son.
Right.
To the Hammond the Hammonds, that would have been a good team.
Yeah, it would have been interesting.
Yeah.
But I remember I went up to you. I think I was at the Brickyard, and I said, "Hey, do you remember I interviewed with you?" But at that point, you'd remember that was 30 years ago. Though. I mean, that's
It's a long time
a
ago.
lifetime ago.
Yeah, well, a lot of times I have a hard time remembering 30 minutes ago.
Don't we all?
I understand.
I go into a room and forget why I went in there.
Exactly. Then wait a minute, I go in the room and say, so I walk back out and go back in again. I now remember.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I had to do that twice to remember what I was going to do.
Yeah.
But another question I have is out of all the jobs that you've had in NASCAR, what would you say is been your favorite so far?
I've got a philosophy about that.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy what I do while I'm doing it.
Yeah.
So, if I'm a crew chief, I like doing things that crew chiefs do and do the best I can. If I'm doing a broadcast, I like doing that. I mean, it's like this morning when I was doing Fast Talk on PRN with Doug and him. I had a ball. I felt like it was, really, a good show.
Mm-hmm.
We communicated well, we conversed, we educated, and I just think there are certain things that you need to feel accomplished when you're doing a broadcast. But at the same time, no matter what I'm doing, if I'm getting ready to go work on the farm, move cows. I mean, it's just like tomorrow morning I got a guy coming in from Tennessee going to load up about 14 head and take them back across the mountain. That'll be the most important thing I do that day until I get it done.
True.
So it's just, I don't know. It's just my mannerism. It's the way I do things. I enjoy what I'm doing. I make the most of it, and realize that you're having an opportunity to accomplish something. I mean, that's the thing. Most importantly is that whatever I'm doing, I want to do it right, get it accomplished, and move on. And the only thing bad about getting old, you don't get it done fast enough to suit you.
But you're living life to the fullest.
I feel like that, and like I say, I like challenges, and I like, people to be appreciative of this is how I am. I mean, just like this past week, I was replacing the tines on a tiller that goes behind my tractor so I can get ready to plow the garden.
Yeah.
And, I've got them all done now. I'm going back to retorque all the bolts and be done with it and be ready to, when it gets dry, to put a garden in.
So you're multi-talented.
Well, I wouldn't say I'm talented.
You are.
But I want to say I'm multi-determined.
There you go.
Multi-determined. I like that. Yeah. That's like me yesterday. I was out riding around on my tractor, bush hogging and stuff. And I was thinking, I could get my son to do this, whatever. But I was like, I'm enjoying this.
Had his little headphones on.
Yeah. Just taking it in.
And I'm sitting on my tushy pulling weeds.
Yeah. I mean, there are plenty of weeds if you got flowers.
Yep. Yeah. Monkey grass.
Yep.
That's right. Well, do y'all have anything else?
There was one comment I was going to read out real quick. This was from T-Chaps88, and he asked, what do you remember about the switch from the Monte Carlo to the Lumina in '89?
A lot of work and a lot of concern, because at that time, once we got the Aero Coupe, worked out with the Monte Carlo, it was fast and it worked good, on 1.5 mile racetracks like it needed to. And we were really concerned whether or not that new car was going to give us the balance we needed. But the folks at Chevrolet did a really good job, and I take a certain amount of pride in saying this because, Chevrolet was kind enough to recognize what the team that I happened to be in charge of, what we did that year. We were the last organization to win with the Monte Carlo, and we were the first one to win with the Lumina.
How about that?
And I've got a painting that was done. It was around the entrance of Hendrick Motorsports, so they had the Monte Carlo like up on the top deal and the new Lumina down on the bottom. And then I I was given the Chevrolet Award of Excellence because of that little feat in my career.
Cool.
So it's something I'm very proud of. But again, it wasn't just me. It was a lot of good people, a lot of engineers, and we had good people, with that group when we made that swap.
Because you had what was called, I guess, the knots back before, And then it ended up being the
Aero Coupe.
And that worked better, obviously.
Oh yeah, we had to have that. We that was what was kind of like was holding us back in '85 against Bill Elliott. I mean, Bill was running that we called it a football, the T-Bird. And it was just bad fast and handled really good. And, you know, the only way we won the championship was that we outperformed overall point-wise that year. We scored more points. We wound up having 3 wins in '85, and Bill had like 12 or 13 or something like that. But we beat him out when it mattered the most.
Tracy, you see the question was
I see. Yeah, there's a couple. There's actually 3 questions.
Is he late to the show or what?
Let me. Dathan Davis says, ask Jeff what he is most proud of in his NASCAR career. That's one question.
Okay.
To be honest with you, just having one. I mean, I feel like, that I was blessed to have a career, and I worked with a lot of great people and experienced a lot of great opportunities. And then, being able to make the transition and to broadcasting, it allowed me to do something that I never thought I'd get a chance to do, and that is to go out of country and visit places, which I spent most of the time going overseas to visit troops. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've been to England, Germany, Bosnia, Sicily, Spain, Afghanistan, Iraq, and Kuwait.
Wow.
As well as Korea.
Wow.
So I've been, here again, the way the broadcast schedule worked out, it afforded me an opportunity to go overseas.
You need to write a song, I've been everywhere, man.
Yeah.
Who would have thought that your daddy buying a race car at 12 years old would put you where you are?
No, never. Because, again, my plan was to be another Nick Bonacani and play football.
Oh, okay.
He wasn't a big guy, and I wasn't a big guy, but I wanted to play.
Mm-hmm. All right. The next question is, what was it like at juniors with Tim Brewer?
Tim and I, were good friends for a while, and then we weren't good friends for a while, and now we're good friends once again. Tim has always been a really exceptional mechanic, and he works extremely hard. And that's the reason why he's won so many races and been a part of a lot of winning opportunities during the course of his career. So, I mean, it's just, we've got a lot of similarities in our personalities, but we're also different in a lot of ways. And, again, I got a lot of respect for him. And, I'm real happy for him being nominated for the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Very cool. That's who we were talking to, remember, over at Reunion?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
Yeah.
So the last question comes from Mr. Dickie Dennis. What is your opinion about the lifetime ban for him?
All right, so our old lady
tell the story
about our buddy Dickie Dennis. He was the infamous fence climber 2014 in Richmond. He climbs up on the fence and hangs out.
You talking about the man who was playing the ape hanger deal?
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember that very well.
So he's a huge 4-car fan, Harvick, and he climbs up there, and then he figures out he forgot his cell phone. He wanted to take a selfie with Harvick going by, so he throws his arms up in the air. But anyway,
what the hell?
He ended up 45 days in jail and like a $10,000 fine or something.
Oh, it was a
lifetime ban.
If he's noticed on the property, right?
Yeah.
They actually showed him during the Fox broad. Clint Boyer does that segment called "Put It Out." It shows showed some incidents prior to Richmond, and then the last thing he showed was Dickie sitting up there on the fence. So I took a picture of it and sent it to Dickie. But he said, "Be a part of the race. Always be a part of the race, but don't be this guy. Put it out." So
it took some guts to get up there and do that. First of all,
was it guts or was it
It was a little beer.
I get a little beer. I'm getting ready to say I would dare believe that he may have been having some of that Virginia moonshine that they got up there because. I couldn't believe it when I saw it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he listens in every week. He's a really good
fan. I'm glad he loves NASCAR.
He does.
But I'm sorry that they've gone to that degree. But what the heck? Worst thing he could do is write a note or a letter to Jim France and beg forgiveness and see if the statute of limitations and everything like that have finally expired on it and. It's like, just give me a trial and you have my permission to get a ball and chain and make sure I don't get off the ground.
Strap him to his seat.
Yep, strap him to his seat.
That's very similar to what I told him the other day. I said, eventually you're going to need to write a letter or do something. But he said that it was a ban by Henrico County and Richmond and them. I said, yeah, but if anybody can make it turn around, it could be NASCAR. So,
the thing is right now, if you're just banned in that county, then go to a different county.
Yeah,
go to a different race.
We went to Martinsville. We met him up there.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing right now. Don't make it sound like, you've been banned from NASCAR. You've been banned from the Richmond racetrack.
Yeah, so
Well,
he's got Army. He's from the Army, so
That's what I was gonna say.
He would, rappel out of helicopters and that type of thing. So he says, can't no drunk do what I did. Know that. So yeah.
Like I've always said, if you're going to do something, own it and then laugh about it.
That's right. Yes. So when I had Doug Yates on the show, and and I told him that Dickie Dennis is tuned in, and he said, "That's my hero." It's amazing how many people knew exactly who we were talking about.
I can say, out of everybody that we've interviewed, out of 100, probably 98 has known who he is.
Well, I make it one less. I did not know who he was name wise. I do know who he is as far as person wise.
Right, exactly.
Like I
Same.
say, I can visualize him right now. Like, what in the hell
What
is
is
he
that
thinking?
fool? What is that fool doing?
Yeah, I got. It's like almost like the guy who stole the pace car down at Talladega.
Yes.
Where were you going?
Right.
I mean, this is an enclosed racetrack. Where are you going to go?
Just to say you did it.
Yeah, and the thing is, he'll never forget it, because I guarantee he's got some knuckle bumps on his head that they still ain't gone down.
Memories, I swear.
That's true. Yeah. All right, so we're gonna. Who did I tell you was made a comment on our Facebook?
I think I read it already.
Okay. All right. Well, Jeff, you got any parting words for our listeners? And I want to thank you so much for coming out tonight. It was a good time, and you're welcome to come back anytime.
Well, I appreciate that, and I guess the best way we could do this: so long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen, good night. No,
it's a good singer too.
It's fun, and it's a privilege whenever you get a chance to sit around and talk about racing in this kind of context. We're not talking about what happened at Richmond, which I thought we might, but we didn't. But somebody else can talk about that. But I love reminiscing.
Yeah, me too.
Unfortunately, when you're around for a long time, you got a lot of memories.
Well, that's the point.
And I've been blessed. Like I told you, just right place, right times, and all the different stories and the situations and things. I mean, we could sit here and do what you did with Sterling that night if we wanted to do something like that, which I think is cool. I mean, I think it's really great that we can commiserate and talk about it and laugh about it. And understand that not everybody has the exciting, I guess you might say, jobs that we have been lucky enough to be a part of.
Yeah.
They were hard jobs.
That's right.
They're jobs.
They were hard jobs.
And that goes back to what I said earlier. It's not that any of us are scared of work. I think we embrace it. And that's what makes us unique unto a lot of this world.
Because you love it.
Well, we love it, but at the same time, we don't shy away from it. And I'll be honest with you. When I hire people, when I ask a question, what do you expect out of this job? And somebody says, well, I figure I'm going to go to work at 7 and leave here at 4.
Oh, no.
Okay.
All right.
I'm going to be sending him a letter.
Yeah. Well, I didn't say that, but okay.
No, I didn't say you did, but I say you've experienced that. He's going to get a letter because that's not what I'm looking for. I'm working for somebody that has the desire to get in here and do whatever's necessary to win.
Yeah.
And that's what we're always looking for. I want people who want to work. I mean, I can remember working 36 hours at Junior nonstop.
Yeah,
that's what we did.
Yeah,
I mean, we take a shower and change a uniform and go get something to eat, but kept on working until we got it done.
Yeah, Dad's got a pay stub where he worked 100 hours overtime.
Yeah, it was something like that. It was
100 hours overtime.
Yeah,
back in the day.
We didn't have a clock, so we couldn't keep up with it. We just knew he worked overtime.
Yeah,
Yep, that was his pay stub back in the 70s.
Yeah.
Yep. It was Bob Hissam was the one I was going to say hey to, and thanks for. He said great show. Yeah, he's with the North Carolina Auto Racing Hall of Fame, I believe it is, right? Bob Hissam?
Yes, North Carolina Auto Racing Hall of Fame.
In Mooresville, so yeah. Yeah.
Wouldn't mind getting in there. Kind of like I grew up here in North Carolina.
Well, you should be in there. If you're not, you should be in there. Yes, for sure.
Great place.
Yes, and thanks to our other friends. Jim Dooley's up in Virginia, tuned in, and Dickie Dennis is in Virginia, of course.
Okay.
Scott Trevison's down in Daytona, Florida. So we go down there and hang out on his boat from time to time.
C-Tunes.
Yep, C-Tunes.
There you go.
All right. Well, let's see. Who do I have next week?
I really don't know.
I totally should have had this written down. I think I got Eric Yost. He's the new owner of the Mooresville Drag Strip.
Oh, that's right.
And a good friend of mine, we traveled together back at Sabco.
Okay.
Sabco days. So,
all right.
Yeah, he'll be on with us next Monday. So there should be some pretty cool stories. We could reminisce about our days going to the racetrack and that type of thing. So
there you go.
That's what I love doing this show. I love documenting these stories and history and stuff. And now it's on YouTube and it's here. You know, I have the video and proof that it all happened.
All right.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is that when we bring guests on, it's about their stories. It's not about what's going on today. It's not about anything. It's about their story.
Yeah.
And that's why we love this show, is because we like to hear what
everybody's got a story.
Yeah, everybody started out somewhere. Where did they start out, and how'd they get where they are?
Yeah.
All right, so we'll see y'all next week, and thanks again, Jeff, and y'all have a great week, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Real Country 550 and 92.9 WAME.